This is the DJI Mini 3. It's a sub 250 gram drone that can fly for up to 38 minutes. It shoots 4K HDR video and raw photographs, both in either landscape or vertical format. And you can get complex shots at the touch of a button. All of this can be yours for as little as £519 if you use your phone as a screen and use a slightly older controller, or £669 if you want the fancy new controller with the built-in screen. It's about £200 cheaper than its older brother, the Mini 3 Pro, which starts at £709, and we'll discuss what's different later, but let's start by showing you just what this tiny drone is capable of. Pretty impressive, and for a lot of you that might be all you need to see to go out and make the purchase of this little drone. But for those of you who are interested in more detail, hang around and we're going to take a closer look. But first, a quick introduction. My name is Stephen Reid and I'm a filmmaker from Northern Ireland. You can check out some of my work at these places, but I make a lot of videos outdoors, and I use drones quite a lot as well. So hopefully that makes me a trustworthy person to talk about this little drone today. Specifically today, I'm using the Mini 3 with the new DJI controller with the screen and the Fly More kit. This is basically the premium option for this drone. You get the Mini 3, you get 3 batteries, you get a charger, a shoulder bag, spare propellers, and a couple of cables. So if we take a look at the drone itself, you will notice mostly on the front here, a design change from the previous generation, and this is one of its best features. It has a newly designed camera with a larger sensor compared to the Mini 2, and that's going to give it overall better video and photo quality. But also they've redesigned the entire front of the drone, and it now has a gimbal that can rotate vertically for vertical videos and photographs. This is really handy for grabbing those vertical videos that you can quickly chuck up on social media, and personally I really like it for taking vertical landscape photographs. This design change first came in with the Mini 3 Pro, and also it has the same changes that the Mini 3 Pro has to the overall body shape of the drone. There's larger propellers on it now for a start, and I think that contributes to the longer flight times and also for the better stability in wind. On paper, the Mini 2 and the Mini 3 range of drones have similar wind resistance, sort of in around 10 meters per second, but I found, and I fly in a lot of really windy conditions, I found that the Mini 3 and the Mini 3 Pro handle so much better in windy conditions than the two ever did. And it is of course still a sub 250 gram drone, which means in a lot of countries there are a lot less restrictions on this, although depending where you live you might have to do things like register it, so it's always important to go and check out what the laws are where you're going to be using this drone. You have a choice of 2 controller options when it comes to this drone. You can get it with the older controller, which means you use your phone as the screen, and there are a couple of advantages to this. As long as you've got phone signal, you're going to be able to download more map information, so you can see more clearly where you are and where you're operating. And you might also have a phone that has a brighter screen than what the controller has, making it easier to operate. On the other hand, if you get it with the new DJI controller with the screen, it's a lot less hassle, it's much faster to set up and just get in the air, and you don't have to worry about your phone running out of charge, which has happened to me more than once with the other controller. One other upgrade that I personally really love to see with the Mini 3 range was that the minimum operating temperature has dropped by 10 degrees. You can now fly this down to -10 Celsius. The Mini 2 only went to 0, and I found that was not very good for flying in cold, wintry conditions. There were a couple of times the Mini 2 just refused to let me fly it because it was so cold. I haven't had any problems with the Mini 3 platform. If you are flying in sub-zero temperatures, you have to be careful, because if you fly for too long, ice can build up on the propellers, and if that happens, So just bring the drone back every now and then and make sure it's not becoming encrusted in ice and slowly coming out of the sky. You don't want that happening. I've flown a lot of drones and a lot of DJI drones, and so far the Mini 3 is my favorite small drone to fly. It's so easy to control. It's the most stable small drone I've used yet, and I really like flying it. You've got 3 modes you can switch between when you're flying this drone. You've got cinematic mode, normal mode, and sports mode. Cinematic mode I really like, especially for low and slow shots, and when you're trying to move really slowly and deliberately, get those really nice soft movements without that like nasty digital gimbal jitter or jump that you can sometimes get if you fly too fast or you make movements too fast. Cinematic mode is really nice for smoothing those out. And sports mode I rarely shoot in, but it will allow you to go up to 35 miles an hour. I mostly use sports mode if suddenly I find myself flying in windy conditions and maybe I can feel the drone starting to drift, or I'm getting wind warnings, or also when I also use sports mode is when some passing gulls have decided to take an interest in the drone and suddenly they start chasing after it. Well, kick it into sports mode and zip away to safety at 35 miles an hour. Takeoff and landing with this drone are really simple, and you can do them either manually or you can do it by simply pushing a button on the screen. It's really easy to get this drone into the air and get it back again safely. There are several quick shot modes built into this that a touch of a button will get you complex shots. You've got drone, you've got helix, rocket, circle, but you just have to be careful though, because unlike the 3 Pro, the Mini 3 does not have obstacle avoidance sensors. This is where they are, or where they would be on the 3 Pro. This doesn't have those obstacle avoidance sensors, so if you're going to be doing a move where the drone is going to be flying around you, make sure you've got tons of space. That's where I am today, is a really good location. And of course, you'll want to keep an eye on the drone as it flies, just in case you need to hit that cancel button in case it looks like it's heading towards an obstacle. There are several quality options when it comes to video. It'll do up to 4K at 30 frames per second, and then 2.7K and 1080p at 60 frames per second. And it's got a maximum bit rate of 100 megabits per second, which is pretty good. Personally, I shoot 4K at either 30 frames per second or 25 frames per second most of the time, because if you want to get the maximum dynamic range, the HDR video, you only get that at 30 frames per second or below. The quality of the video is excellent, as you've seen from such a tiny drone. It's sharp, the colors looks good, it's got a decent dynamic range, tons of detail, it's decent in most lighting conditions. Now it does suffer a bit when you're shooting directly into sunlight. You might see the skies get blown out a bit, or in really low lighting conditions you're going to start to see noise come in and the image is going to start to go a bit muddy. But currently those are just trade-offs we have to live with having such a small sensor camera. Now you can get even more from the video if you know some basic color grading techniques. You can go in there and you can maybe pull up the shadows a bit, maybe you can get a bit more information in the skies, and you can add gradients, and there's all kinds of stuff you can do in post to really maximize what you can get from your footage. And often that is the difference between a professional's footage and an amateur's footage. The professional will always know how to put that little bit of extra work in to get the most from it. So like with any camera, the image you get directly from it rarely shows the full potential. Sometimes there's a little bit of work involved afterwards, just to maximize it. Maximize! The photographs you can get from this are also great quality, and I was really impressed that it lets you shoot in RAW format. So you can go in there and you can process that image and you can get more color information, more exposure information, if you like editing your photographs afterwards, maybe in something like Lightroom or Photoshop or Adobe Camera Raw or whatever other photo editing applications are available. But of course, you're maybe not going to get just the same levels of detail as you would from a much larger camera. The drone has several panorama modes in it, which lets you shoot sphere, 180, and wide-angle photographs, which automatically stitches together several photographs to make one larger one, which is really useful if you're like in somewhere like this, where you can't get far enough back to take in the entire landscape. Just stick it into wide angle and the drone will go. Doesn't actually make those noises, but that's kind of how it works. And if you're trying to take HDR photographs, high dynamic photographs, you can shoot bracketed exposures. You can shoot one normal exposure, one exposure that's underexposed to get all the sky information in, and then one that's overexposed to get all the shadow information on land. And then you can take those and you can blend them for a high dynamic range photograph. So for a minimum cost of £519, you can get yourself a very capable drone. And for about £800, you can get yourself it with the fancy controller and all the essential extras. However, we haven't discussed the elephant in the room, and that elephant is the Mini 3 Pro. It's kind of a small elephant with a big attitude, because for an extra £200 at all configurations, you really do get a lot of extra features that really squeezes every last drop of possibility from this diminutive form factor of a drone. For a start, you get obstacle avoidance sensors. You can see them here on the front, those round things. And also you can see another two on the bottom here, or on the Mini 3, they're empty. The lights are on, but no one is home. I think that possibly these account for the slightly lower flight time of this drone. Was it 34 minutes compared to 38? It's probably because, well, some of the power is going to the obstacle avoidance sensors. These obstacle avoidance sensors greatly reduce the chances that you're going to crash into anything, because they're going to detect an object and stop the drone before it hits it. The 3, on the other hand, will quite happily just fly straight into a hedge. We all know people like that. The presence of those obstacle avoidance sensors facilitates a feature which probably makes it worth the extra £200 alone, and that is object tracking. With the Mini 3 Pro, you can select a person or an object or a vehicle or whatever it is, draw a little box around them, the drone will lock onto them, and then you've got multiple options for tracking and automatically flying around that object or person, and just allows you to bring the sort of filmmaking capabilities up an extra notch. The video quality in the Pro is better too. It shoots at a bit rate of 150 megabits per second compared to 100 on the Mini 3. It also has color profiles, so you can shoot standard or you can shoot flat. And not only that, it's 10-bit HDR video, and that just means there's so much more color information in it. That just gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to editing and you're working with your colors. Now, there are other differences, like this has the new O2 video transmission system, which means it'll have a more reliable connection. It can go further from the controller, and you'll get higher resolution preview on the screen, 1080 instead of 720 like on the Mini 3. And also the Mini 3 Pro will shoot 48 megapixel photographs compared to the 12 you get from the Mini 3. For me, as a professional filmmaker, it was a no-brainer to drop the extra £200 for the extra features that you get with the Mini 3 Pro, because in my opinion, this is the first sub 250 gram drone that is good enough for professional work. This well earns its little Pro on its leg there. However, not everyone is a professional, or you just might not care about, need, or want the extra features that this gets you, in which case, saving £200 is not to be sniffed at. I mean, in this current economic climate, that'll get you at least 5 fish suppers. So the Mini 3 is not to be sniffed at. It's a highly capable drone at a really good price, and a brilliant option for a first-time flyer. However, I gotta be honest and say, if you want a more professional option, or if you just have a little bit of extra cash to splash, I would personally recommend the Mini 3 Pro. So hopefully you found this video useful, and hopefully it helped you make a decision today about where you're gonna spend your money. And thanks for watching this video, and if you want to see more from me, you can go and check out Steve's Tech Emporium or my main channel, Stephen J. Reid, for outdoors adventures. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.